You ever have a moment where your whole life shifts in an instant? 1 second, you're laughing with people you think love you, and the next, you realize you're just the punchline to a joke you never saw coming. That's what happened to me. It was supposed to be a weekend trip. Just me, my wife, and her friends, Rachel, Jessica, and Madison. We had driven to a neighboring state for a getaway. Rachel, my wife, had insisted I come, saying, "It'll be fun, babe. You need to relax." I should have known better. The whole trip had been off. Rachel had been distant, spending more time whispering with her friends than talking to me. And when she did talk to me, it was with that fake, sweet voice she used when she wanted something or when she was covering something up. Saturday night, we hit a bar. Drinks flowed, laughter filled the air, but not mine. I was the outsider. The guy they barely acknowledged unless it was to make fun of me. Even Rachel, the woman I'd married, was treating me like an afterthought. Then, things got weird. At some point, Rachel leaned in close, too close for the woman who had barely looked at me all night. She had this smirk, like she knew something I didn't. "You trust me, right?" she purred. I nodded, confused. She giggled, exchanged a look with Jessica, and then said, "Good. Let's see how much." Next thing I knew, we were outside. The girls were shoving me into the back seat of the car like I was some drunk idiot who needed help getting home. Except, they weren't coming with me. Rachel stood at the driver's side, twirling the keys around her fingers, grinning like a damn hyena. "Let's see if he can make it back," she laughed. Jessica and Madison howled with laughter, clinking their drinks together. The engine roared to life. Before I could react, before I could even process what the hell was happening, they were peeling out of the parking lot, leaving me standing there in the dark, in the middle of nowhere. I ran after them. I screamed Rachel's name. But they were gone. And that was the last time I ever saw my wife. At least, for the next 15 years. I stood there, breathless, staring at the fading taillights until they disappeared into the night. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. The wind bit through my jacket, and for a moment, I thought, this is a joke, right? They'd circle back, laughing, calling me an idiot for believing them. But minutes passed. Then an hour. No headlights. No laughter. Just silence. My phone was dead. Perfect. The last charge had drained hours ago when Rachel accidentally forgot to bring the car charger. I walked. Miles of empty road stretched in both directions, not a single car in sight. No towns, no gas stations, nothing but the sound of my own footsteps against the pavement. My legs ached, my mouth was dry, and rage burned in my chest like acid. Rachel did this. My wife. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just some dumb prank. No one accidentally leaves their husband stranded in another state, miles from home, without his phone or wallet. She wanted me gone. At some point, a truck finally passed. I flagged it down, and the old man driving looked at me like I was some escaped lunatic. After some convincing, he let me use his phone. I dialed Rachel. Straight to voicemail. I called again. And again. Nothing. I tried Jessica. Madison. One after another, no one picked up. My chest tightened. I scrolled through the call log. The last call on the phone? A missed one from Rachel. She called him. My stomach twisted. The old man gave me a ride to the nearest bus station. I scrounged together just enough money to get a ticket home. Every second on that bus, my mind raced through the possibilities. Maybe they really thought it was funny. Maybe it was just some sick joke, and she was waiting at home with a fake apology, acting like I was the one being dramatic. Or maybe, she was gone. I got home just before dawn. The house was empty. Rachel's clothes, her shoes, her perfume bottles on the dresser, all gone. Like she'd never lived there at all. On the bed, a single note. Hope you had a fun trip. I did. No explanation. No sorry. Just that. I sank onto the mattress, staring at the words, my hands shaking with pure, unfiltered rage. She didn't just leave me stranded. She left me. For 15 years, I never saw her again. Until last night. My phone buzzed, 107 missed calls. All from Rachel. I stared at the screen, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. Rachel. After 15 years of silence, 15 years of nothing. And now, 107 missed calls. I didn't pick up. I let it buzz until the sound became background noise, just like she had become in my life, an echo of a past I had buried. But the messages started rolling in. Ethan, please. I need to talk to you. It's important. I made a mistake. Please pick up. I'm begging you. Begging. The same woman who had laughed as she left me on the side of the road like trash was now begging to talk to me? I wasn't that same guy anymore. The one who trusted too much, who loved too blindly. The Ethan she knew died on that road 15 years ago. Still, curiosity gnawed at me. I wanted to know why. Why now? What did she want? I waited. Let her sweat for a few more hours before finally calling her back. She answered on the first ring. Oh my God, Ethan. Her voice cracked, like she had been crying. I didn't think you'd call. I stayed silent. Let her squirm. I need to see you. Please. It's about the past. About that night. I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. You mean the night you and your friends abandoned me in another state? The night you vanished like a coward? Silence. Then, a shaky breath. I regret it, Ethan. Every day. You have to believe me. I was stupid. I thought it was funny. I didn't realize. Cut the crap, Rachel. You knew exactly what you were doing. She inhaled sharply. I could almost hear the guilt, or maybe just the shame of being caught. Can we meet? Please. I should have hung up. I should have told her to rot in whatever miserable life she'd built after screwing me over. But I needed answers. Where? She gave me an address. Some rundown motel on the edge of town. Desperate. I got there an hour later. She was waiting outside, pacing, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. She looked different. Older, obviously. The years hadn't been kind. There were deep lines around her eyes, her hair wasn't as perfect as she used to keep it, and she had that haunted look, like someone running from something. The moment she saw me, her eyes widened with something between relief and fear. Ethan. She took a step forward, but I didn't move. Didn't give her that satisfaction. Start talking, I said, my voice flat. Her lips trembled. I know you hate me. You have every right to. But, she hesitated, swallowing hard. I'm in trouble. I almost laughed. Of course, she was. That was the only reason she was here. Not my problem, I said, turning to leave. Wait. Please. She grabbed my arm. I stiffened, resisting the urge to yank away. Ethan, it's about that night. You don't know everything. I didn't just leave you because I was a terrible person, I mean, I was, but there was more to it. I stared at her. Oh, this should be good. She took a shaky breath. I wasn't alone. That caught me off guard. What? Her hands clenched into fists. There was someone else. Someone who told me to do it. Who wanted you gone? A chill ran down my spine. Who? Her lips parted, but before she could answer, tires screeched in the distance. A black SUV roared around the corner, heading straight for us. Rachel's eyes widened in horror. Run! Before I could react, Rachel grabbed my wrist and yanked me toward the motel. The SUV barreled toward us, headlights blinding, engine roaring like a beast unleashed. Gunfire. Glass exploded behind us as bullets shredded the motel sign. I threw myself forward, dragging Rachel with me as we crashed through the motel door. She stumbled, gasping, her face pale with terror. Who the hell is after you, Rachel? I snarled, slamming the door shut behind us. You need to listen to me, she cried, chest heaving. They know you're alive. I grabbed her by the shoulders, shaking her once, hard. Who are they? Her lip trembled. Ethan, it's not just about me leaving you. I was forced to. My stomach turned. Bull asterisk asterisk asterisk. You laughed, Rachel. You laughed as you drove away. Asterisk. Tires screeched outside. Doors slammed. Heavy footsteps. They were coming. Rachel's nails dug into my wrist. They made me do it. That night, he told me to leave you there. Said if I didn't, he'd ruin me. Ruin us. I let go of her. Who the hell is he? She swallowed hard. Darren. My blood went ice cold. Darren. My old best friend. The guy I trusted. The guy who was always a little too close to Rachel. The guy who vanished from my life the same night she did. The room tilted. Pieces snapped together like a puzzle I hadn't realized was missing pieces. You and Darren, my voice was dangerously low. Rachel flinched. She didn't deny it. She couldn't. My hands curled into fists. You left me for him. Her eyes filled with something like shame. I didn't have a choice, Ethan. You always had a choice. Heavy pounding on the door. Rachel spun toward the window. We need to get out of here. But I wasn't done. Tell me why Darren wants me dead, Rachel. Tell me why, after 15 years, he still gives a damn where I am. She opened her mouth. The door burst open. A man in a ski mask stormed in, gun raised. Rachel screamed. I lunged. The gun went off. Pain tore through my shoulder like fire. I hit the ground hard, my vision flashing white. Rachel shrieked, diving behind the bed as the masked man stepped closer, gun aimed at my head. Should have stayed dead, Ethan. His voice was low, almost amused. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself up despite the searing pain. Blood soaked my sleeve. I didn't recognize his voice, but I knew exactly who sent him. Darren? I spat. The man chuckled. You should have never come back. Before he could pull the trigger, I lunged. He wasn't expecting it, I wasn't supposed to still be moving. My shoulder screamed in agony, but adrenaline drowned out the worst of it. I slammed into him, knocking the gun sideways as another shot rang out, shattering the motel mirror. Rachel scrambled for the gun, but the guy was fast. He grabbed her wrist, twisting hard enough to make her yelp. I didn't stop. I grabbed the bedside lamp and smashed it into his skull. He staggered, cursing, and that was all the opening I needed. My fist connected with his jaw, sending him crashing into the nightstand. Rachel didn't hesitate. She kicked him hard in the ribs before grabbing my arm. We have to go. I didn't argue. We bolted out the back just as more footsteps stormed into the motel room. The alley was dark, slick with rain. We ran, my shoulder throbbing with every step, my mind racing faster than my legs. You gonna tell me why Darren's trying to have me killed now? I hissed as we ducked behind a dumpster. Rachel's breath came in ragged gasps. Because you're alive. No. Try again. She swallowed hard. He thought you were dead. We all did. That's why he let it go. But now? Now he knows you're back. And there's something you don't know, Ethan. I stared at her, waiting. Rachel licked her lips, eyes darting behind me to check if we were being followed. Then she whispered the last thing I ever expected to hear. Darren isn't just my ex. He's my husband. The world stopped. My body went still, every muscle locking into place. Say that again. Rachel flinched. Ethan, Say it. Her voice was barely audible. I married him. Rage, betrayal, disbelief, they all hit at once. My pulse pounded so hard I thought my head might explode. You married the guy who left me for dead? Rachel closed her eyes like she couldn't even face me. I didn't have a choice. Stop saying that. She finally looked at me, and for the first time that night, I saw something real in her expression. Fear. You don't get it, Ethan. He owns me. And if he finds us, he's not gonna stop at just killing you this time. A car screeched around the corner. Headlights flooded the alley. Rachel's grip tightened on my arm. Run. I didn't hesitate. We bolted down the alley, my shoulder screaming in protest with every step. Behind us, car doors slammed, heavy boots pounded against wet pavement. You think you can hide, Ethan? A voice bellowed, filled with amusement. Darren. The man I used to call a friend. You're 15 years late for your own funeral. Rachel yanked me around a corner, her breath ragged. We need to get off the streets. No. But where? A rusted fire escape loomed ahead. Without thinking, I grabbed the railing with my good arm and hauled myself up, ignoring the burning pain tearing through my injured shoulder. Rachel scrambled up behind me just as bullets ripped through the metal below. We climbed 2-3 stories up before I kicked open a window. The glass shattered, and we tumbled inside a dark, abandoned apartment. Dust and mildew choked the air, but we didn't stop. I yanked Rachel away from the window just as a spotlight from below swept across the building. We ducked behind an old couch, panting. My arm throbbed, warm blood seeping through my sleeve. Rachel turned to me, her face pale. Ethan, we have to leave the city. Now. Why? So you can run back to Darren after he's done trying to kill me? Her eyes flashed with something I couldn't place. I told you, I'm not on his side. You married him. I didn't love him. Her voice cracked. That didn't stop you from walking away, did it? Rachel clenched her jaw. You think I wanted this? You think I had a choice? There it was again. That excuse. That same damn excuse. You always had a choice, Rachel. Her eyes glistened. For a second, just a second, I saw the woman I used to know, the one I had loved, the one I had trusted. Then the moment was gone. A crash from below. They were inside the building. Rachel grabbed my hand. We have to go. I let her pull me toward the hallway, my body moving on instinct. But my mind? It was still trapped in the past, replaying every memory, every betrayal, every lie. And I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. We ran down the hallway, my boots slamming against the rotting wooden floor. Every step sent a fresh jolt of pain through my shoulder, but I pushed forward. Behind us, voices echoed up the stairwell. Find them. Rachel yanked open a door at the end of the hall, revealing a rusted fire escape leading to the rooftop. Go, she hissed. I climbed first, my good arm doing all the work. Rachel followed, glancing over her shoulder just as the door behind us burst open. There. Gunfire. Bullets pinged against the metal railing as we scrambled onto the roof. The rain had started again, making the surface slick. I scanned the skyline. There was another building close enough to jump to, but it was at least a 10-foot gap. Rachel saw where I was looking. No way. We don't have a choice. More voices. More boots. They were coming up fast. I took a breath and ran. The rooftop rushed up to meet me as I landed hard, rolling to absorb the impact. Pain exploded in my shoulder, but I bit down on the scream. I turned just in time to see Rachel hesitate. Jump, Rachel. She didn't move. Her face twisted with panic. Rachel, now. The first guy reached the rooftop behind her. I saw his gun rise. Rachel took off. For a second, I thought she wouldn't make it. Her foot caught the ledge, and she tumbled forward, crashing into me. We hit the ground in a tangled mess just as gunfire erupted behind us. She groaned, pushing herself off me. You better have a damn plan. I'm working on it. I grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward the rooftop exit. We barreled down the stairs, 2 flights, 3. My vision blurred, blood loss making my legs weak. We burst out onto a side street. No cars. No people. Just the sound of our ragged breathing. Rachel turned to me, chest heaving. We need to leave town. Now. I leaned against a wall, trying to stay conscious. And go where? She swallowed hard. There's someone who can help us. But you're not gonna like it. I wiped the sweat from my brow. Who? Rachel hesitated, then said a name that made my blood run cold. Jessica. I stared at her. You mean one of the bitches who left me for dead? Rachel nodded. She's not on Darren's side anymore. And she knows things. Things we need if we're going to survive this. I exhaled slowly, tasting the metallic tang of blood in my mouth. Fine. I didn't trust Rachel. I sure as hell didn't trust Jessica. But if this was how I got my revenge on Darren, I'd take the risk. We moved fast, sticking to backstreets, avoiding main roads. Every shadow felt like a threat, every distant engine like Darren's men closing in. Rachel led the way, and despite everything, despite the rage boiling inside me, I followed. Jessica. That name sat heavy in my gut like a rock. She was one of the last people I ever wanted to see again. The same woman who laughed while I stood stranded on that road 15 years ago. The same woman who probably thought I was dead this whole time. Rachel stole a car. Nothing fancy, just an old sedan with a busted rearview mirror. I sat in the passenger seat, gripping my bleeding shoulder, watching her hotwire it like she'd done it 100 times before. You always been a criminal, or is this just a hobby? I muttered. Rachel shot me a glare but didn't answer. The engine sputtered to life, and we peeled out onto the empty road. For a while, neither of us spoke. The rain smacked against the windshield, the wipers creaking back and forth. I pressed my palm against my wound, trying to slow the bleeding. Where is she? I finally asked. Rachel hesitated, then said, she's staying in an old cabin outside of town. She's in hiding. From Darren? Rachel nodded. She tried to leave him. He didn't take it well. Sounds familiar. Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. I know you hate me, Ethan. But Darren, he's not just some jealous ex. He's dangerous. You have no idea what he's capable of. I scoffed. Pretty sure I've got an idea. Rachel opened her mouth, then shut it. For the next 2 hours, we drove in silence. The city lights faded behind us, replaced by dense trees and winding roads. The farther we got, the more isolated it felt. Finally, Rachel pulled onto a dirt path. "We walk from here." I forced myself out of the car, my entire body screaming in protest. Rachel led the way through the woods, flashlight cutting through the darkness. Every snap of a branch had my muscles tensing, expecting Darren's men to appear from the shadows. Then, up ahead, a dim light. A small cabin sat nestled between the trees, barely visible through the fog. Rachel stepped onto the porch and knocked 3 times in a weird pattern. A long pause. Then, the door creaked open. Jessica stood there. She looked different. Not the arrogant, laughing woman I remembered. Her hair was a mess, dark circles under her eyes. She was holding a gun, but the way her hands trembled told me she wasn't sure if she'd need to use it. Her eyes landed on me, and for a second, she didn't move. Then, Jesus Christ. She stumbled back, hand covering her mouth like she'd seen a ghost. "Yeah," I said flatly. "Miss me?" Jessica's face twisted in something between shock and guilt. "Ethan, save it." I pushed past her, stepping inside. "Just tell me what the hell is going on." Jessica and Rachel exchanged a look. Then Jessica sighed, shutting the door. "You might want to sit down for this." I didn't. I just crossed my arms and waited. Jessica rubbed a hand over her face. "Darren, he's not just looking for you because you're alive." I clenched my jaw. "Then why?" She hesitated. "Then. Because you have something he wants." My pulse spiked. "And what the hell would that be?" Jessica swallowed hard. "Your name is still on the account." Everything stopped. The world tilted. Rachel wouldn't meet my eyes. Jessica shifted uncomfortably. 15 years ago, before you disappeared, Darren funneled a lot of money into an offshore account. He put it under a fake name. Your name. He thought you were dead, so he never worried about it. I exhaled sharply. "How much?" Jessica's voice was barely a whisper. $30 million. My heartbeat thundered. Rachel finally looked at me, guilt written all over her face. "He doesn't just want you dead, Ethan. He needs you dead. Because as long as you're alive, you control everything he built." My hands curled into fists. This wasn't just revenge. This was war. I stared at Rachel, then at Jessica. My mind was a storm, 15 years of betrayal, of being left for dead, and now, this? $30 million. And Darren had put it in my name. No wonder he wasn't just trying to kill me, he was desperate. He'd built his empire on money he couldn't access as long as I was alive. Rachel shifted uncomfortably. "Ethan, you need to disappear. For real this time. If we get to the account first, drain it, you can take the money and..." "And what? Run?" I laughed, but it came out hollow. "That's your big plan? You think after everything, I'm just gonna vanish again while Darren keeps running things?" Jessica sighed. "Ethan, you don't get it. Darren isn't just dangerous, he owns people. Police. Judges. If you try to fight him head-on, you'll be dead before you get close. So what's your plan?" Jessica hesitated. Then, she turned and walked toward the small wooden desk in the corner. She opened a drawer and pulled out a single flash drive, setting it on the table. "This is everything." Rachel stiffened. "Jess." "Shut up, Rachel." Jessica looked at me. "I've been collecting dirt on him for years. Bank statements, deals, bribes. If this gets out, Darren doesn't just lose his money, he loses everything. But we can't just drop it off at the cops. He'll see it coming. I picked up the flash drive, rolling it between my fingers. So we go bigger. Jessica narrowed her eyes. How big? We don't just ruin him. We erase him. Rachel swallowed. Ethan, if we do this, we can't stop halfway. Darren doesn't forgive. I looked her dead in the eyes. Neither do I. Jessica exhaled. Then we do it tonight. We didn't have time for second guessing. The longer we waited, the closer Darren got. Jessica had already set up an automatic release, emails, documents, hard drives, all set to go public the moment we pulled the trigger. The only thing left was flipping the switch. Rachel hacked into the offshore account using old security codes Darren hadn't changed. Within minutes, the money was gone, drained into accounts we controlled. And then, we sent everything out. Emails flooded every major news outlet. Bank leaks, hidden crimes, testimonies from people Darren thought were loyal. It didn't take long. By morning, Darren was a wanted man. By noon, his empire was crumbling. His men scattered. His assets frozen. By evening, he was dead. The news barely covered it, just a small headline about a businessman found in his burned-out car. The world moved on, but I didn't. I stood on the balcony of a rented apartment a week later, staring at the city below, feeling nothing. Rachel stepped beside me. It's over. I didn't look at her. No. It's just beginning. She frowned. Ethan, you got your revenge. You have the money. What more is there? I turned to face her. Everything you and Darren stole from me? 15 years of my life? I let that sink in. You think I'll just walk away now? Rachel paled. Jessica stepped out onto the balcony. You're not gonna stop, are you? I pocketed my hands. No. Jessica sighed. Then let's get to work. Rachel took a step back, shaking her head. I didn't sign up for this. I smirked. Then run, Rachel. You're good at that. She didn't argue. She turned and walked away. I never saw her again. But Jessica? She stayed. And together, we started something bigger. Because Darren wasn't the only one like him. And I had nothing left to lose.